بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Witness with Wahid. This is our second episode of a series of programs in which we present to you eminent Islamic scholar Dr. Bilal Philips. And I have a little question for you this evening. How do you see the various aspects that we have in our culture that seem to be slightly outside Islam? Topics like voodoo, black magic, and so on. How do you see this?
Well, to be honest, my PhD thesis was on the exorcist tradition in Islam.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, I had to look into this in quite some depth, issues of voodoo type practices, magic, and fortune telling, and possession, and this whole field, and this is an area which troubles people throughout the world. So it's not surprising that it's here. I've seen it in Malaysia and Indonesia, even in the Arab world. I've lived most of my life in the Gulf. Most of the last 35 years of my life have been in the Gulf. But I've traveled extensively from there, and virtually every country I've been in, this element is there, In the Gulf, you read in the newspaper of such a person caught, tricking people that he's turning, dollars into single dollars into $100. People are looking for this market, all the time. So there's a lot of that going on everywhere, really.
Right. I mean, we have, our own share of this. We have our Pandita black magic or white magic, call it what you want. Probably it's a kind of voodoo. I don't know how to classify it. We have little creatures that live in the cemetery. We have a khurafat, we have Hanukkah, we have Hemus, and you name it, we have it. Creatures that probably God never made, but which would sit in cemeteries and watch passers-by and probably try and even attack them. We have something called Baridur, the Honorable Gunmaster, who seems to be almost omnipresent. You throw a liquid in the night, hits him in the face, he'll probably come back and, visit on you all sorts of sicknesses and stuff. I mean, how do you deal with this? I mean, obviously this is something outside Islam.
Well, what I believe is that to a large degree, this comes from the contact with the world of the jinn. And this contact is manifest or understood by peoples in a variety of different ways, because what you spoke of is no different from the fairies and the leprechauns and the others that are in other societies.
And the kapre from the Philippines.
Yes. So, these elements, haunted houses and Ouija board and these other things that people get caught up in, all have elements of jinn interaction with human society, about which the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, warned us, to be careful of, and gave us insight into, gave us different du'as or supplications to make to repel these forces when we feel that presence, and gave us also the type of guidance in society which should prevent the development and the successful operation of jinn-related, you could say, business, like fortune telling, that, we need to eradicate this from the society. It shouldn't be there anywhere, because once you're involved in that, you're opening doors. But then again, you have...
Doors to what?
Doors to bring in other elements of this unseen evil world, where people start into what they call seances and, channeling, where you're supposed to be channeling spirits, where people allow themselves to become possessed, and leads to madness in some case, murders, and all kinds of things can come out of it if it's not kept in check. So one has to be, as a society, vigilant to keep these type of beliefs and practices at bay. And again, we go back to the education system, that from the earliest stages, the children should be made to know clearly that these things are, are evil or fake, or not to be caught up in them, not to accept them, that what Islamic teachings concerning the unseen world are, so they know clearly. Because actually, when I wrote my thesis, actually this was to give clarity, for people around the world who are not really aware of this whole process of jinn possession and jinn influence and these kinds of things, which can even include the so-called, flying saucers and, aliens and all these other kinds of things, because the jinn, we do know, are capable of taking on different forms. I mean, this is something Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has, confirmed for us, affirmed for us that this can happen. So, if what you need, what is necessary to draw you away from true belief in God is a belief in aliens and life on other planets and all these other kinds of things, well, then they're there to provide it for you. They can provide the evidence. You feel that the alien should have a green head, with these kind of eyes or whatever.
But you're talking about a very, very dark world out there, the world of the jinn. And when that comes into our basic life as we know it, that does create problems, doesn't it?
It can, especially if one is not aware of how to deal with it. Where you end up resorting to methods which are themselves black magic related, where you're making sacrifices. You read about it. I've read it since being in India, reading about, people sacrificing their own children.
They still do it?
Yeah. Till today.
That's the new one.
To try to, remove and to repel people's businesses failing, and that they end up, taking their neighbor's child and sacrificing the child. So this, the evil that can possibly come out of that, the ignorance of that world, is quite great, and can draw people even into the paranormal type of activities, where magic now becomes, a means of controlling large numbers of people, like the example of Sai Baba, for example. He's got over 8 million followers, and if you look at his program, I watched him on television, it's all magic. He's playing magical tricks on the people, producing eggs from his mouth, golden eggs, and putting his hand in empty containers and ash coming out, and they call this holy ash, and the people are running and collecting it, and he's just got a magical program running on the people.
Now that's the kind of dark kind of world where you would have people with their knives and daggers and blood and so on. But then if you look at the so-called modern manifestations of this, how far removed would this be from the world of horoscopes and coffee cup reading?
Well, horoscopes, represent a form of fortune telling. And the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had said, whoever goes to a fortune teller out of curiosity, his prayers are not accepted for 40 days and nights. And if he goes there out of belief, he has in fact fallen out of belief in Islam. So it's something very, very serious, though people might play with it and think it's, just a game, out of curiosity. You go and check in the newspaper your column, your horoscope column, what am I, Gemini or whatever, what's the word on me today, It's really not something to play with. It's something which, because of its connection to faith, where you now associate or give to a fortune teller or to other forces, the stars, etc., star formations,
but then there's such a
belong
strong
to God.
following, even in the Islamic world, even in the Maldives. There's a big following in astrology and astronomy, and not astronomy, but the astrology. People call themselves Virgos or Scorpios, and they're proud of it. And they wear t-shirts to prove the point.
But this is again ignorance. If they understood from the earliest of ages, in their educational growth, that this was something completely displeasing to God, that it is against worship of God in itself. It becomes worship of other than God. It's giving God's powers to others besides Him. Then people would be immune to this kind of disease. But where people are ignorant, then of course everybody's looking for a shortcut. If we can figure out, well, is today a good day to do this or not do that, that helps us to succeed, then people are naturally attracted. Everybody wants to know the future.